Hello, tribe, and welcome to season 2 of the Faye Jones Live podcast. This is your host, Faye Jones, and I want to thank you so much for your patience and for tuning in and listening to every episode. I know we took a little bit of a break here during the summer months, and I thank you for gracefully allowing me to take that break. I want to fill you in because it wasn't just a time of vacation or anything like that. You guys know I've always been very transparent about things going on in my life, and well, the summer season was a little rough. I was dealing with some thyroid issues. I'm still dealing with them, but that had kind of caused my energy levels to drop way below normal. And so I had to take some time to just work on that and allow my body to recover and regain some of its energy back. And so that meant that some of the things that I was doing, I had to put on hold in order for that healing to take place. So I definitely want to thank y'all for your patience with that. Um, Today's topic, it's not going to be a super long episode, but it is something that I've been seeing come up a lot, and a lot of moms have been expressing some of their frustrations and their challenges when dealing with teenagers. And I understand completely because I have a teenager and a young adult. I have a soon to be 21-year-old and a soon to be 18-year-old. So I completely understand the phases that you mamas are going through. And I wanted just to share um, some of the things that I've learned throughout the journey that I think will definitely bless you and help you along the way with your own teens. One of the biggest things, and I know that it's not often talked about, but it's important. The human mind, human brain, is not fully developed until about age 25. So before age 25, yeah, you're going to see some kids that are more responsible than others. You're going to see kids that are more go-getters, and they seem to be very, very mature. But even in that, physiologically, there's parts of the brain that are not fully developed. And which part of the brains are these? The parts of the brain that's not fully developed is the frontal lobe. And that is the part that is responsible for good decision making, reasoning, understanding, and all of those things. So this is why you see that teenagers usually don't have very good impulse control, and they tend to do things impulsively without thinking them thoroughly too much and without weighing the consequences. And this is why it's much easier for them to fall into peer pressure, but it's also why it's so much easier for them to become very self-centered and narrow-minded in certain things. It's not that your child is being egotistical or selfish. It's just literally there are parts of the brains that are not developed. So when you come to understand that, I hope this helps you understand that your teenager is not out to get you. And I say this lightly because there is some teenagers that are very well calculated and they know what they're doing and they're purposely doing harmful things. So don't think that putting all kids in one category. This particular podcast is not for the parent who's dealing with a troubled teen who is purposely doing damaging things. Okay? This one's geared for the everyday parent who knows they have a child, a teenager that's a pretty good kid, but sometimes, dear God, it just feels like it's too much, like this child doesn't get it through their head. That is who this podcast is for. So if you're dealing with youth that's at risk, we're going to have different episodes for that. Please feel free to visit the contact us page on Faye Jones Live and send me a message. Let me know what are some of the things you're dealing with. What would you like to hear in the podcast? Or you can send me a message on Facebook, although my Facebook has been acting up as of late and I haven't been able to respond to messages through there, but I can at least see them. Um, so please keep that in mind. So, with that said, if this is the faces you're dealing with, you have to understand that your child genuinely at times just does not know how to process their feelings, their emotions, the situations that they're dealing with. And so, as parents, we need to have some patience and help them find the words to be able to process that. And sometimes I know it could be challenging because we want them to give us an answer right then and there on the spot. But sometimes we're going to have to give them the space to think about things. And then they will get it and they will be able to give us the answer. One thing that as a parent you want to resist from doing is labeling your child as a bad child, as a bad kid, teenager, as problematic. And this is why. Uh, when you do that, you're closing yourself to your child. Your child's going to start to feel like they're a burden to you, which means that when they are truly going through it and they need you, they're not going to come to you. They're going to go to somebody else. And that somebody else may not have their best interest at heart. It may lead them down the wrong path. So it is important when you do have to bring correction to that child because they're being too much. Uh, you need to be able to look at them in the eye and say, look, I love you. And nothing that you do will ever change the love that I have for you. However, the way you just responded to me, it is unacceptable. Or this action that you did, I will not tolerate it under this household. You are much better than what you're displaying to be right now. So why are you selling yourself short? And you see, when you speak to them like that, you're letting them know is, I think the world of you. I think you're amazing. So why are you doing things that are beneath you? Why are you sabotaging yourself and your future? And that honestly makes all the difference in the world. It keeps the communication lines open. It builds trust. And now when your kid is struggling with something, when they're not processing something in the way that that's constructive, they'll be able to say, hey, mom, dad, I'm going through this thing and I'm feeling this way. Don't quite understand what's going on yet. I don't know how I feel or where I stand on this, but I'm struggling with this. And now you're able to help them process that together. So that's very important. Um, don't label, don't put labels on your child, okay? And this is just the biggest thing that I've learned because when you put labels on your child, they're gonna close off. What we say to them, it's permanently embedded in their heart. They will remember it even long after we're gone. Another thing is, mom, dad, if you're a person that's very critical, and look, and this is where we're going to have to be honest and do self-assessments because it's going to take some humble pie. If we are very judgmental and critical, and we always find something wrong with how other person are doing, understand that that's going to harm your relationship with your child. Because even if you're not critical and judgmental of your child, they see how critical and judgmental you are about everybody else. So when they are struggling and going through it, it doesn't matter how bad it is, they're not going to open up to you because they're not going to feel safe to open up to you. So this is where it's important to not be given to gossip and drama in your life because they're observing that and they're getting clues off of that. And I'll tell you, they will not open up to you. They could be going through hell in a handbasket and they won't tell you because they don't want to be judged. Because they've already heard how harsh and critical you can be about another person's situation. So why would they go to you? And this is important because this is going to extend not just through their formative years, but in their young adult and adult years. You know, when our kids enter those young adult years, they're going to make mistakes. And even in their older adult years, they're going to make mistakes. They may go through some serious hardships, some of them, of their own making, and some of them of not of their own making. And they're going to go through hardships. And if in every topic of conversation and anytime they interact with you, they hear you say, oh, Bobby Q McGee, you know, isn't managing their money right. They should be doing this better. They should be doing that better. I can't believe they did this. I don't know when they're going to get it through their head that they need to change the way they do things and this and that and the other. And it's just common sense. And they hear you talking like that about somebody else. They could be in a dire situation where they need you more than ever. And not necessarily seeking for resources or money from you, but just emotional and spiritual support where they can go to you and say, man, the weight of this situation feels heavy, and know that they're going to have a covering where they're going to have a parent that's just going to be like, baby, I don't know the answers. I don't know how to help you fix this. But we're going to go to God. We're going to pray. I'm going to stand with you no matter what. I will pull up the chair next to you and walk this with you. That's what our children need more than anything. And if we're overcritical all the time, they're not going to feel safe to say that. They're not going to be safe to open up about their struggles and their situations. And it's going to lead to frustration on you on the parent end, because as a parent, you're gonna be looking at the situation like, man, um, my kid doesn't open up to me, and I hear about their their troubles and their situations through other people. That is why. In some small cases, it's pride. In some small cases, it's just that the kid doesn't want, some kids hold their parents in such a high regard that they don't want their parent to know that they're going through something. But 90% of the time is we parents created an environment that taught them, I can't go to mom and dad with that. So as a parent, if we're closed off, our kids are not going to come to us. If when our kids come to us with a mistake, with a moral failure, and all we're doing is being harsh and being critical and being like, you see, you never do anything right. That's why you need to listen to me. You should always listen to me. I can't believe you're still making this mistake. This is always how you've always been. You've always been the problem child. You're always come to your child with that. They're not going to open up to you. And why am I saying all of this? And listen, if you don't have children, I also need you to listen to this because you will have children at some point. And when you do have those children, you need to be able to know how to navigate those waters. And the reason I'm saying this is I do coaching, but I'm also a human being and I observe. and I have relationships, and I see things, and I see the dynamics, and I see the damage that's being done, and being actively in the mental health industry. Um, there's a lot that I see in that. I'm going to tell you right now, is so damaging because I see the adults that have been spoken to and treated in the ways that I just mentioned. And then I see adult parents who desperately want relationship with their kids, who they're in their older years, they're in their 60s and 70s, even 80s, and they want closeness with their child. They want that bond because this is the thing. As you are raising your child when they're young, you're teaching them how to treat you, how to trust you. And if you as a parent are so focused, everything about yourself, your work, everything, and you're not giving them time, you're being overcritical and harsh and condescending and disrespectful to them. And if every time they come to you, you're acting like they're coming to you with trivial, petty things that are unimportant, and as if they're bothering you, you're teaching them with that how to treat you. So then, as they grow up and they move out and they live their lives, they're going to learn to live life without you, but not because you taught them how to be independent and self sufficient, but because you taught them that you were unreliable and that you couldn't be bothered. And now, fast forward, they're in their 40s and 50s, you're in your 70s and 80s years of age, and you're realizing that life is fragile, you know, death is closer than it ever was. You're aware of your mortality. You're aware of how important family is, and you long to have that closeness with with your children. And your children are like MIA. And I don't mean missing in action as in they don't call you or visit you, although that can lead to that. Um, but you feel the emotional and spiritual disconnect. You want closeness, you want depth in the relationship, but your children remain superficial with you. This is why. Because you taught them not to have any depth with you. Those times when they were struggling with something and they wanted to come to you for help or for some advice or just some comfort, and you were like, not right now, I'm busy. Why are you coming to me with that? That's stupid. You train them to not come to you. As I was saying, you can't get mad if you for learning how to live without you, if you taught me how to live without you. And that goes for any relationship. It's friendships, parents, family, it doesn't matter. If you with your behavior teach somebody to live without you, they're going to learn to live without you. And then you can't get mad when they don't come to you. You created that environment. And I know this is a little bit of a tough conversation, but it is important. And even in friendships, we must learn because we, if we're the type of parent that's always harsh and very critical about our friends, and we're always talking crap about our friends and how stupid and the things they do, our kids are listening to that. And through that, we're also teaching them that I can't go to mom because, damn, if those are her friends and she talks like that about her friends, imagine how she'll talk about me. Imagine how he'll talk about me. If dad thinks that of his friends who he calls his buddies or best friends and we're tight and all that, and he can talk like that about them, imagine what he'll say about me. I'll keep my problems to myself. I'll go to somebody else. And this is why a lot of times parents feel like they got blindsided when their children are struggling with emotional issues. and they end up with, depression or suicidal or eating disorders. They feel blindsided. No, all the signs were there all along. It's just we were, as parents, so caught up in ourselves and our issues that and our needs and wants that we forgot that we brought children into this world that need us, and that while, yeah, it's important to not neglect ourselves and our needs, we need to keep them in the forefront, because now we have a responsibility before God and before them to guide them, to lead them. And then you're surprised. So this is more of a cautionary tale. And I know you were probably expecting step by step, this is how to identify it, this is not how to not identify it, this is what you need to do kind of podcast, which is the normal structure that we do for the podcast. But this one is more of a heartfelt conversation because I see it too often. And this part, believe it or not, is not as hard as we think it is. It takes having empathy and compassion. It takes remembering what it was like to be at that age, how hard it was, the challenges we went through. It takes getting off of our high horse and coming down to their level and being able to say, look, I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect. I'm going to miss the mark. I'm going to annoy you. But I need you to know that I'll always love you, that I'll always be here for you. That you can tell me anything. And even if it's difficult for me to hear, I will hear you out. That's what it takes. And you'll be amazed. Because the beautiful thing is, and this is something I'm experiencing right now. In a season in my life where, letting go more of the reins and letting my kids make more and more and more and more of their life choices and decisions, because they're young adults pretty much. And we've been going through some challenges as a family. There's been some illnesses and deaths and things like that going on in the family. And emotionally, that's been a little challenging. And sometimes, as parents, we want to portray this I'm tough, I can do anything, I can bear the weight of my shoulders. And I said, you guys are old enough to see me sweat. Because I'm not going to portray that I'm stoic and that I don't go through things. And being able to upfront with them and say, look, this and this and this and this and this has been going on. And I don't have all the answers for all of those things. I don't know what's going to happen with all those things. And some days I'm fine. And some days I just want to curl up in a ball and cry. The only thing I can promise you is that through all of this, I'm going to hang on to God. And that even when I feel scared or I have tears in my eyes, I'm going to go to God. And I'm going to let God walk me through this. And the most beautiful thing happened because you could see them breathe a sigh of relief, because they understood that in adulting, you're not always going to have the answers. It removed the need for them to feel like they needed to be perfect. It removed the need for them to feel like they had to have it all figured out. And so we have to give our children those gifts. And the most surprising thing happened because, in one of those moments where I was feeling a little emotional about the situations going on, my youngest child looked at me and said, Mom, it's like you always say, it doesn't matter how hard it is, God's going to see us through. And I know God's going to see us through in this one too. And at that moment, I realized, oh man, my babies are growing up. And it was beautiful because I didn't see them trying to take on the weight and trying to become, the adults of the house and the problem solvers, they were just there to recognize, yeah, this is a tough moment. God's got us. And they recognized that God was number one and that we weren't always going to have the answers, but we knew somebody who did, and that's God. And that's important. But the way we build children to be that is we have to be consistent with that from the beginning. We have to model that. And if you made those mistakes that we've talked about earlier in this episode, you're not alone. Because some of these things I learned from making these mistakes. So I'm not coming to you I'm an expert at parenting. I got it all down to a science. I know exactly what you need to do. That's not it. That's why this is a heartfelt conversation. This comes from trials and errors. This comes from making the mistakes and having to have the humility to go and fix them. This comes from allowing my children to be brutally honest with me and tell me where I was missing the mark. It comes from learning how to apologize and how to be humble before my own children. And you see, that's so important. The biggest gift you can give your child is to know how to apologize when you do them wrong. And parents, when I say do them wrong, I'm not saying, horrendous things, because everybody think, well, I never abused my child. I never done this horrible thing to them. And so we think that because we haven't done those things that we don't need to be humble and apologize. And if you have done those horrible things, yes, you do need to be humble. You need to apologize. You need to make it right. You need to seek healing and restoration of that relationship. But there's also times where we as parents are short. We're a little too sharp with our tongue. We can be dismissive of situations. And when we do that, we need to be able to have the humility to say, hey, a few minutes ago, we were having this conversation and I realized I was really short with you, or I was really sharp tongued, and I know those words hurt you, and I am so sorry for that. It was not my intention to hurt you, and I didn't measure my words because I allowed my emotions to get the best of me. Please forgive me. That was unacceptable. And now imagine what happens. Kids like, wow, my parents respect me and love me enough to apologize. And guess what they learn to do to that? They learn how to be humble and how to apologize when they do wrong. But it also teaches them something more important. It teaches them that you fear the Lord enough and that you will ask for forgiveness. Because the word says that when you wrong somebody, you do it right. Because the word says don't provoke your children to wrath. Because the word says love your neighbor as you love yourself. Do unto others as you would like done unto you. Because to him whom much is forgiven, much is required. Because with the same measure that you measure others, you shall be measured unto you. And you see, now we're showing them how we live our faith. And all those things are important. They will all affect years down the road, not just in the teen years. Build the kind of relationship where they can trust you, and do not betray or breach their trust. Trust takes a lifetime to build and a few seconds to destroy it. I want to leave you with these things to think about. And again, if you're not a parent yet, still listen to this because you're going to get a lot out of it. And these principles not just apply to parenting, but they apply to any relationship, really. When we really look at it, any relationship that has any of the negative traits that I spoke about it's a very shallow relationship and it doesn't have trust. Um, we need to learn to be good listeners. Um, we need to learn to have empathy. We need to learn to not be stuck in ourselves. Um, and this is it's difficult. We're selfish human beings naturally by nature. That's part of the sinful nature. But we need to learn to do away with that. In a society that's becoming, thanks to social media, more and more self-absorbed and narcissistic, we need to go back to being able to be there for one another. And this doesn't mean neglect yourself, neglect your well-being. It doesn't mean don't have boundaries. But you know, if when we're single, when we don't have children, if we develop a habit and a pattern of it's all about me, 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 and my needs and what I want, and when our friends and loved ones come to us, well, we're in the attitude of, well, just tell me what you need and I'll fix it. We're going to have troubles as parents because sometimes when our friends and our family and loved ones come to us, they're not asking us to fix anything. They're not telling us to step in and save the day. They just want to know that they have a safe place where they can let their hair down, speak their truth, and they will be heard. And if we adopt that self-centered attitude, this is what happens a lot of the times. We'll call our friends because we got stuff going on. We'll dump everything on them. And then we'll ask, so what's going on in your life? As a formality. And they'll start to share a little bit about what's going on in their lives. And the minute we have the opportunity, we'll interject and go back to our lives. And so most of the conversation will be about us and our issues and our situations and our life. And then we're like, man, I love this friend because they're such an amazing listener. They're so great. And we hold that friend in high esteem because we know that when we go to them, no matter what, they always listen. And they'll allow us to have a whole conversation about ourselves and our issues. But we fail to be the friend that says, how are you getting through life? And then we're surprised when the friend all of a sudden withdraws and doesn't want to talk to us anymore. Or we are surprised when we hear that that friend was struggling so bad with something that they harmed themselves, or we learn the extent of how bad things were. And we're surprised. Why didn't you come to me? It's the first thing we say. Guess what? That friend did try to go to you. They tried to have those conversations, but we were so stuck in ourselves that we turned it all into us, all into about what we wanted to talk about, all about our problems, our situations. And so that friend simply remained quiet. That is how these things happen, my friends. So I'm having this heart to heart with you because we have to do better with our children. We have to do better in all of our relationships. And it takes being aware of these things. Learn to reciprocate. If you expect people to be able to listen to you for 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, however long, about your issues, be willing to do the same for them. With no agendas, just be willing to be there for them. This is how we get through the teenage years, and this is how we get through the relationships and the hurdles in life. This is exactly how we do it. Let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are. I want to hear from you. on the website, Faye Jones Live, Spotify. You can give me comments. You can send me an email in the contact us section of our website. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to know where you're at with this. What did you get out of this? Let's start to have these important conversations. Heart to heart, real, raw conversations. Not everything is step one, do this, step two, do this. Sometimes it's introspective. Sometimes it's a little bit deeper. Sometimes it's going to take asking questions. Sometimes it's going to take looking at our people and saying, how do I show up? And if we're not showing up right, we may have to go talk to a therapist or a counselor or something and say, hey, you know, my family, my friends say I don't show up very well in these kind of situations and this and this and that. I want to figure out why is it that I don't show up well in those kind of situations and how can I show up better. Rather than taking it as a personal attack, let's take it as an opportunity to improve. Because immature us says, well, that's just the way I am and you're going to have to deal with it. But God tells us to always examine ourselves, to seek growth, to do away with the childish things, the immature things, and to mature in the Lord, to go from glory to glory, different levels. So we can't excuse trying to remain the same. We need to do better. With that said, I want to thank you for tuning in, and I want to thank all of you who have been sharing the podcast and encouraging other people to listen. It's been a really beautiful journey. As of right now, we're not just reaching audiences in the United States, but we're also reaching audiences in Africa, in parts of Africa, and in parts of India. So it's really exciting because it's official. The podcast has gone international, and I couldn't have done that without you guys. So thank you for supporting this, for supporting Faith Jones Live. And thank you for also keeping me in your prayers. I really wholeheartedly appreciate that. They're being felt. Uh, I know that when I began this journey, look, it has not been easy. It was a challenge, but it's been so beautiful and so rewarding. And to see the growth that you guys are doing and seeing how God is using this to transform your lives, it's the motivation that keeps me going. It's the motivation that no matter what the challenges come ahead, I say it's worth it. So thank you for being a part of this journey. With that said, love you guys. Have a blessed day.